welcome to Plowing the Past. My name is Kendall Motes, and today I am here with Mr. Ken Weber. In these videos, guests who have shaped New Holland, Pennsylvania's agriculture history will be interviewed and asked to share their experience. Again, my name is Kendall, and I'm a student at Ithaca College, majoring in integrated marketing communications and minoring in journalism. I graduated in 2023, but throughout my time in high school, I was a member of the FFA, the president for 2 years, as well as the Sentinel before that. And additionally, I was the first New Holland Fair Queen in 2022 to 2023. So agriculture has been a part of my life for the last 5 years, and I'm super excited to share these interviews and these wonderful people with you today. Now again, I am interviewing Ken Weber. He was our state secretary in 68 to 69, as well as an FFA member and officer. So let's join him today and talk to him about his experience. So, Mr. Ken, would you be able to just give us a brief overview of your time in the FFA and, well, I guess what really made you want to join FFA and get into agriculture?
Okay, well, I was born and raised on a dairy farm outside of Bowmansville.
Okay.
And members of the church where I went to, neighbors, were all going to Garden Spot and joining the FFA.
Okay.
So that seemed a natural thing for me to do.
Okay, wonderful. Now, what was your favorite part of being in the FFA? Was it the community, the competitions, being an officer?
I'm not sure if there was any one thing. The one thing that sticks out in my mind was learning new and different practices on the farm.
Okay.
For example, the 1 year, and I forget which grade it was, we learned about taking soil samples and things like that. So I had talked my dad into letting me have 3 acres of land to plant corn.
Okay.
So I took soil samples and I ordered the fertilizer according to what the soil sample said. And I can still remember my dad saying, "Boy, you're going to go broke." So it was a perfect growing year for corn. When we needed rain, it rained, and sunshine and everything. So that fall, and I don't remember who it was, but one of the student teachers and I went and did a yield check. And we came up with 150 bushel. So that evening we were milking, and I told my dad, "There's 150 bushel of corn in that field." And he says, "Absolutely not. There's no way you'll get 150 bushel out of that field." And I was a little upset that he didn't believe me. So several weeks later, we were milking, and he says, "I have to tell you this, but I picked that field of corn today, and that has more corn in it than any field I've ever seen."
So you were doing something right.
So, and then my grandfather told me a couple weeks later, "Your dad was here bragging about that field of corn you raised." But the most exciting part is, guess who next year asked me to help him to do soil samples?
Your dad.
Yep.
There you go. So were you guys like a team then? How old were you when the corn happened, your first plant?
My guess is 15 something.
15? Okay, so then did you help him years after that?
Yeah.
As much as you could? Yeah.
Well, and then when I graduated from high school, then he got a job off the farm, and I took over the farm then.
Okay. Now, what was your FFA experience like as an officer? What officer roles did you have, and what did those experiences that you had as an officer mean to you or differ from just being a member?
Well, I was always the secretary.
Okay.
Let me see, that was in 11th grade, I was second secretary.
Okay.
And then I was a secretary as a senior.
Okay.
And, I really enjoyed it and everything. And then when we graduated, Mr. Hurd came to me and said, "Would you be interested in being a state officer?" And I said, "Sure." And my cousin, Glenn Weber,
Okay.
Was he had just got off of being a state president at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my parents that I was going to go to try out for state office, and they sort of, okay, yeah. And so I went and became state secretary.
Okay, and you were state secretary at the same time. Your cousin Glenn Weber was a national officer,
Yes, yeah.
correct?
Yeah, we were at the same time, and we actually went to some banquets, local banquets together.
That's awesome.
At the same time.
That's great. Now, what made you want to run for state office?
Because he did.
Because he did, yeah.
And there was several state officers who I went to church with.
Okay.
Ken Martin, I think that was his name.
Mm-hmm.
He was one, and I forget who the others were, but there were several who were right from our area where I grew up.
That's great. What kind of experiences did you have that was like that light bulb moment that you needed to stay in the FFA longer?
Okay. Well, at the yearly banquet that we had,
Mm-hmm.
there was always a state officer there.
Okay.
And some of them I knew personally. There was a couple I didn't, and there was always something about them that they stuck out above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to see whether I could do that.
Yeah. Have you met any of our recent state officers like Grace McCarty, Brandon Vixler, Abby O'Neill?
No.
You haven't met any of them?
No.
I'm great friends with Grace and Abby too. And
Okay.
and I knew Brandon, but
Sure.
Grace and I went through school together, so
Okay.
she just got done her year of state office in June. So I definitely recommend you talking to her if you have a chance. I'll have to put you two in contact. Now I'm looking here, and what ag teachers did you work with during your time in high school?
Dr. Hurd, and then Phil Ogline,
Okay.
and Gene Doherty.
Okay, great. And then what were some of your favorite competitions or projects when you were in high school? A lot has changed in the last 65 years.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I enjoyed was doing the projects at home with the animals that I had.
Okay.
Before I started as a freshman, my dad and I talked about, we knew we needed a project.
Okay.
So we were milking and trying to figure out what I could do. And I always enjoyed hogs. So Blue Ball, there was Paul Martin had a sales stables there. And we went there and bought a Duroc kill. And that was the start of a whole bunch of hogs.
Okay. So was that the animal that you were like interested in and mostly focused on? Were your hogs, or did you have any other animals that you would show or sell? Or
Well, then I got some heifers too.
heifers? Okay.
So by the time I graduated, I remember quickly, it was 10 sows
Okay.
and 2 heifers.
Okay.
And then as soon as I graduated, all the farm work on about 100 acres, did everything.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, you grew up on a dairy farm, you said, correct?
Yes.
So having the heifers was no problem. You were used to that. Okay. What was your state office experience like? Now, I'll bring Grace back into this, and I mean, Abby and Brandon too, they are gone mostly that whole year. I mean, they come home every so often for like weekends or a couple days. Was that the same experience for you?
No.
Okay.
The experience I had was I was at home and doing the farming, and if I needed to go away in the evening or something, Dad automatically did all the milking. The one thing that really stuck out was Walter B. Saul High School in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yes, I have. And they have wonderful kids that come out of that program. And I was actually on the nominating committee my junior year.
Okay.
And we had, I think it was 2 or 3 students from there that ran for state office, and they were great.
Yeah. So part of the responsibilities was in the winter, we were given a list of schools in our area where we live, and that was one of them. And I went down there to visit one day, and I saw the future. Because, you know, when I was in school, everything was production agriculture.
Yeah.
And I got down there, and there was greenhouses, and there was fish and ponds, and horticulture. And there was even a couple cows there and some steers.
Yeah.
And there was, I would say, probably half the class was girls. At that time, there was no girls.
Yeah, you didn't see that.
I didn't see that at all. So it was eye-opening to me of what, you know, a garden spot. That's how that was 50 years ago.
Yeah. Now, what do you think was most important during your time of state office to advocate for or to share with others?
Well, in the speech that I always gave at the FFA banquets, I told a story about this shy boy who started in the FFA and then progressed through and everything, and he turned into a state office and was speaking to you. That, to me, I was hoping I was encouraging shy young kids that they could do whatever they wanted.
That's wonderful. I love that. Now, you're talking about going to FFA banquets, so that was one of the things you were doing. And then you did chapter visits. Was that what the WB Solomon was? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Now, what other events did you do? Now we have weekend events like ACES or SLLC. Was that something you did or no?
Never. Don't know what it is.
So ACES, I never know what it stands for. But SLC is State Legislative Leadership Conference. Students from all over Pennsylvania, 10th and 11th grade, or not, I think it's 11th and 12th. I don't think freshmen can go. Or maybe they can, it just depends how many you bring.
Sure.
But they all go into Harrisburg, and they learn about like the delegate process and pass laws that are getting passed in the House and Senate now. And it's really cool, and we got to meet like Dave Zimmerman, so that was a great experience I had. But anyways, back to you. What kind of events did you have where the whole state kind of came together?
Well, we had a winter at Harrisburg where we gave out the Keystone Awards.
Okay.
So we had a sort of a meeting there for that. And then in the summer we were at Penn State.
Okay.
During that was not Ag Progress Days, but we had a convention there.
Okay. The state convention?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we went down to Washington, D.C., and there was state officers there from the eastern part of the country.
Okay.
And we were down there for several days.
Okay. Did you do a lot of work with other states' state officers during your time?
No.
No. Okay. Because I know now they're like Grace took a flight out. I think somewhere. I don't want to say it, but she took a flight out somewhere and had like the most amazing experience at their state convention. Sure. So you never had other state officers come into the state convention. Okay. And then we also had, I'm thinking about it now, the Washington Leadership Conference, and that was during the summer for a whole week. I actually got a scholarship for it, so did Grace, and we went together into the DC area for a week, and that was great as well. And that was run by past state officers. Did you guys have anything like that? No, I didn't think so, because I think it is like fairly new. Now, how have you seen the FFA change over the last like 65 years? What like policies or just programs itself? I mean, we have some very powerful women in agriculture now. When you said you never saw like really women in agriculture chapters.
Well, when we were at Kansas City for the national convention, since I was a state secretary, I was on the floor for all the voting.
Okay.
and I voted for girls to join the FFA.
That's amazing.
Up until that time, girls were not allowed.
Okay. And that was in 69, right? That was passed?
Well, it was passed in 68, and 69 is when
they were allowed to join.
When they were allowed to join.
Okay. So yeah, that was during your year as secretary.
Yeah.
So at the National Convention, did you have other members with you? Or?
It was just the state officers.
Okay, great.
We were there.
That's awesome. What did National Convention look like for you? How long was it? What kind of events did you have? Was it great to meet people from all over?
Well, I was there twice.
Okay.
The first time I went out, it was with Garden Spot. Okay. And there's a picture here someplace of a van, a pickup truck, with a plywood camper on the back.
Oh my goodness.
Plywood and 2x4s. And I think there was 11 of us. And Dr. Ogline drove.
Okay.
There was 2 guys sitting up front, and the rest of us were in the back where there was benches built along the sides. And that's where we sat.
Oh my gosh. And where did you stay? Did you stay in tents or hotels? Or?
When we were in Kansas City, we stayed in a hotel.
In a hotel.
We all had sleeping bags along.
Okay.
And I can remember several times we stopped at roadside rests and put our sleeping bags on picnic tables or on the ground and slept there.
Yeah, because how far is the drive to Kansas City? Because I've only ever drove to Indy. So.
Well, since Dr. Ogline was the only one driving.
Oh, he needed to rest.
It was 2.5 days or something.
2.5 days. Yeah, that's a lot. For 11 kids too, oh my gosh. And he was the only advisor that went?
Yes.
Okay, I can imagine now not having, because we've always had 2 advisors go. And I guess the one year we did have 1, but we only had a van full and that was like 6 of us. So that's a good ratio. Yeah. I have some more questions here for you just about the FFA experience.
Sure.
So you ran for state office,
right.
Wonderful year in state office. Did you think about running for national office then?
Well, what happened was my grandfather owned the farm we were on.
Okay.
And he passed away, so the farm had to be sold to settle the estate.
Okay.
So that pretty much ended my FFA career.
Okay. Now it ended your FFA career, but did it end your agriculture career? What did that look like after you were done?
Well, I went into what is called 1W service.
Okay.
You probably never heard of it. During the Vietnam War, there was a draft classification for conscientious objectors. Instead of going into the Army or anything like that, you could go work in a position where doing good for the public. One of the requirements was it had to be at least 150 miles from home. So you couldn't drive back and forth every day. So I went just outside of Washington, D.C., in Bladensburg, and got a job in a hospital in inhalation therapy.
Oh, wow, okay.
And today what's called respiratory therapy.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. It was different. And my experiences in the FFA really helped a lot. Okay. Because I was giving IVB treatments to patients. Okay. So I have to go into the room with this machine and tell them the doctor ordered this treatment for them, how they're going to take it and all that, set it up for them, and let them have the treatment. Yeah. That's just like pitching to your dad, hey, the doctor ordered for this fertilizer for the cornfield, and you got to order it. Yeah. Now, what did you do after your time there? How long were you in D.C. for? 2 years.
2 years, okay. And then you came back home?
Yeah. But I need to tell you something that happened while I was there.
Okay, go ahead.
So there, I was all over the whole hospital. Okay. Because we went to every floor and everything. Okay. And so part of the job description was in the evening, we had to go into the rooms where oxygen was being used and make sure it was still being used. And if it wasn't there, find out where the equipment was and everything. And back in those days, there was no computers or anything. Everything was written down. So I had to go into the nursing station and record everything on the charts. So this one evening, I went into this nursing station, and the nurses were talking about baking. And they asked me if I could bake, and I said, yes, I know how to bake chocolate chip cookies. And so they started to laugh, and then, yeah, right. So I said, I'll prove it to you. And they said, how are you going to prove it? I said, I'll bake chocolate chip cookies tomorrow and bring them in the evening. Well, you're going to go out and buy the cookies. So I can still see the head nurse look at the ward clerk, who was the prettiest girl in the whole hospital. She pointed a finger at her and said, Betty, you need to go along with Ken and make sure he bakes those cookies. That was our first date. And we've been married 53 years.
Oh my gosh. So she moved back with you to Pennsylvania.
Right.
And you were both nurses?
No.
No, she
was a ward clerk, which would be like a secretary in the nursing station.
Oh my gosh. So she went home with you, you actually made the cookies? Did they like them? I have to ask.
Yeah.
They did like them. That's great. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah. So then we got married, and then when the 2 years were up, then we moved back to Pennsylvania.
Okay, and you still live in Bowmansville in that area, or?
I live in New Holland.
You live in New Holland now? Okay.
Yeah. But then to get back to what I did then, I farmed for a few years.
Okay.
And then things in the early 80s were really tough.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to sell out. And then I started working in dairy equipment.
Okay.
Milking cows, cooling milk and all that kind of stuff. And I retired from that in 2019 I retired.
Okay, wonderful. And you did the dairy equipment job until 2019?
Right.
Okay, so you stayed, did you enjoy that job then? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it kind of everything you always were doing like on the farm? Or was it more like progressive since it was probably at a larger scale?
It was at the beginning, I'm trying to remember when I started. It was like 80, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
83. The dairy equipment was going through quite a transition.
Okay.
There was a lot of cows being milked with bucket milkers. You
Mm-hmm.
probably don't know what they are.
I mean, I've seen pictures of them, but
Right.
I would have no idea the process.
Right. So farms were converting over to pipelines where the milk would be sucked up into a line and then went into the milk cows.
Okay.
That was taking over, and milking parlors were just coming in.
Okay.
And the average dairy farm then was maybe 40, 50, 60 cows.
Wow. Okay.
The largest farm I've been on in this country was a year before I retired.
Okay.
25,000 cows.
Where was that at?
Indiana.
Indiana. And now for your job, did you travel or did you stay in the area? Or why did you go out to Indiana?
Well, the last 10 years I was strictly in sales.
Okay. Did you enjoy sales?
Yeah, especially the part where you took farmers to see some of the latest and greatest
Okay.
milk equipment. And that's the reason we were in Indiana.
Okay.
There's a farm out there called Fair Oaks. You may have...
Wait, is that the Fairlife farm?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, I was there actually. We were there before. Okay, I was like, that sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
We took a pit stop out there when we went out to National Convention.
Yeah.
Anyways, keep going. So you took them out there to sell them the latest equipment.
Right. And, Fair Oaks has 5 milking parlors
Yes.
with 4,000 cows in each one. And then they have just recently, in the last couple of years, put in a 2,000 cow setup. It's all strictly robotic.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw going from bucket milkers to robotic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge difference that I've seen in the lifetime that I was working with milking equipment.
Yeah.
And I did everything from going out and repairing something at midnight to installing some really large parlors.
Mm-hmm. Did you think it was helpful to have that wide, broad view of the whole milking business? I mean, you started out as a kid just milking cows and then doing the odd jobs around the farm, and then you were actually working for a company, and then on top of that, your FFA knowledge where you're talking to kids from all around the state about their experience as dairy farmers. Do you think that was beneficial then to sell the product and have those personal views?
Sure.
Yeah.
It helped a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what was your career goal when you were in high school? Like, what did you think the rest of your life looked like? Did you think you were going to be selling parts or working with the machine?
I was going to be a farmer.
A farmer. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, does your parents, or do you still have that land in Bowmansville, or no, not anymore? That was sold.
That was sold. And are you familiar with the Bowmansville area?
Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm.
You know where King's Potato Chips is?
Yes, I do.
All those houses there, that's where the farm was.
Oh, wow. Okay, and now all those houses are there.
And that place where they have all that electrical equipment and everything, that big, huge substation along 625, just north of Bowmansville.
I go up 625 every day for work. So, across from the golf cart place.
Yes.
Okay, what is that?
That was my grandfather's farm, and where the substation, that's where I raised the corn and gave 150 bushel.
That's amazing to know. Thank you for sharing that. I would love to look at it now and think that there could be cornfield there, but that's great. Now, we're wrapping up our interview today. Is there anything that you wish I asked you? Whether that's about your career, your life now, your experience in the FFA, anything that you wish I'd ask?
Well, I have 2 children.
Okay.
A daughter who is a nurse practitioner.
Wonderful.
And she lives in Leola.
Okay, great.
And she has 2 daughters and a son. My oldest granddaughter graduated from Temple with a degree in biology. Mm-hmm. And she is going to be a PA. My second granddaughter is a senior at Westchester, and she is getting a degree in marketing and I forget what the other part of it is, business and marketing.
Business marketing, okay.
And then we have a grandson who is 12. And I have a son who we were worried about him. He, as a boy, whenever Betty was baking or cooking, he was right there asking why you're doing this and everything. So he went to culinary school in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And today he's lived in Colorado for 25 years or so. An executive chef.
Executive chef out there. That's great. So do you visit Colorado a lot then?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely out there.
Yeah, we'll be going back in September.
Oh, that's fun. I wish you that you have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with me today?
I think that's it.
Wonderful. I'm glad we were able to cover this today. Thank you all for watching. I had a great time interviewing Mr. Ken Weber with you. Stay tuned for our next video for Plowing the Past.